Well, Anne Rabbitte is the Minister of State at the Department of Children with responsibility for disability. Minister, you're very welcome to the show. What do you say to Evelyn, Miriam, Audrey and all those other parents and children who are consistently failed by the system?
Kieran, thanks for having me on. I acknowledge what they have said, Kieran, and I hear what they're saying. And I suppose I'm trying to put a plan in place to address their experiences and actually to prevent what other parents could experience down through the years, because what they have experienced and what they've told you yesterday, I'd love to tell you it was just their three stories, but that is actually the stories right across the country. The long waiting list, not getting your child seen to, and when you do 6 weeks and without any other follow-up is not good enough, Kieran. I totally agree with the parents. And what I have to do is to put a plan in place actually to prevent this continuing and to work with people to ensure that we can put a system in place. And I'm working on putting a system in place to listen to what the parents are telling us, how the system is failing them and failing their children. And it has not just failed them today or yesterday. When you were listening to Evelyn there, it's gone on since 2015 and didn't get the first session of 6 weeks till 2019. That's unacceptable. That's not early intervention by any manner or means. That's nearly willful neglect by the state. And I actually have to put a system in place to address that right across the country.
And how close are you to putting in that system?
Well, I suppose, Kieran, a bit of work has been done, a nice bit, because under confidence supply we got our first 100 posts. It really is all about having enough people in the job to deliver the service. So what we have to do again this year, we got the requirement that would be required from a budgetary point of view to fill all these posts. There was a requirement for 400 posts that we needed this minute. I got 100 therapist posts and the school inclusion model got 100 therapist posts. So that was 200. So we achieved 50% of that ask. And I'm already making budgetary preparations for next October where we will actually have another ask for what needs to go in place.
Yeah.
So we are putting a system in of where we can actually get the therapists in front of the children as quickly as possible. And it just isn't about recruitment is one thing, but we also actually have them trained within the state. So I'm having that conversation with Minister Harris when he's looking to the CEOs and looking to how can we increase numbers. We have to increase the training in our OTs, our physios, speech and language and psychologists. We need more people trained in the system so the output at the other end is there for a delivery of service.
I've been covering this story for years, and every time we do, this is the response we get. Oh, don't worry, there's a plan in place and we're going to recruit all these extra people and all this extra money comes. And the waiting list just fluctuates, but it never really moves. I mentioned yesterday, I think 7 years ago it was 21,000. Just before the pandemic hit, it was 23,000. It's now 25,000. So, it goes up and down, but not a huge amount. It's still criminal. It is criminal. And as you said, it's neglect by the state. I'm glad you used that word. It's absolutely neglect by the state. Like, what makes your promises any different from all the other promises we've had?
I suppose, Kieran, mine aren't promises. I have got the funding for the 100 posts. The school inclusion model got the funding for the 100 posts. We are recruiting. I met with Curo 3 weeks ago to ensure that also that as anybody who came home to Ireland and had put on the green jersey and actually had trained abroad, that the assessment and registration of those skilled workforce, the OTs and the physiotherapists, how long does it take to turn their application around and how many days? So that in actual fact we're recruiting at the moment within the network disability teams. I have 100 posts to fill right across, as I say, OT, physio, speech and language, dietetics, social workers. I need to recruit those positions, but I need to ensure that we actually have no hold-up, no clinch in the system. And that has been there, Kieran, and hadn't been ironed out. So we need a clear understanding of where the roadblocks have been. There's no point in having the money if you don't fill the position. So that's one of the things I'm doing.
What about using that money to supplement parents securing private therapy? Because that's what we keep hearing as well from parents, is that they have to dip into their savings, if they're lucky enough to have savings, to go and get private speech and language therapy or private physiotherapy or private occupational therapy, and they're able to source that to a degree. There's a shortage of it, but they're able to source it at some level. Of course, that's all well and good for parents who have some savings. Then the parents of children in disadvantaged areas who don't have any, they completely go without. Again, it's another failure by the state. But in the short term, until you can hire all these extra people, allow parents to go and source it themselves and fund it.
Well, I suppose, Kieran, we're sort of talking really like last year, 100 therapist posts were recruited. They never actually got to go into post. This is before I ever became a minister. And they never really got to go into post. They went into contact tracing and swabbing. They only started to come back out of that last October. We acknowledge that. And now we're recruiting another 100 on top of that, along with the school inclusion model team. So there's going to be 300 therapist posts, as we're speaking at this moment, going to go into post by May. Okay? And they will actually make a direct impact, and we have to give that an opportunity. I agree with what you're saying about giving parents the opportunity.
But in the short term, you could do it
about that, Kieran.
tomorrow.
I'm in favour of that. I'm in favour of that. Okay? I have spoken about that, of giving the parents the option if we're not able to provide them with the service.
Well, if you're in favour of it, why isn't it happening? Who's working against it?
To be honest with you, at this moment in time, as I just clearly said to you, we haven't given the 300 therapist posts that we have recruited. That hasn't kicked into action. We haven't seen the results of that, and it is there. It is going to bear fruit, and we have to give the new network disability teams the opportunity actually to deliver for us. Okay? And what I will be tested on is when I sit in front of you maybe in 6 months' time, and if you invite me back again, and you talk about the 23,000 for initial assessment of speech and language therapists, or if you talk to me about the dietetics or the psychology, the 9,700, or the 11,000 children waiting for physiotherapists, or the 21,000 children on OT waiting lists, I need to have the teams. I need to give the HSE this opportunity to see that these network disability teams make a difference, because there's a huge reform going on within disability. And to be fair, we're leading that out at the moment.
Yeah, so you're going to give the HSE the opportunity to try and improve this before you do anything else? No,
that's not what I'm saying. We have reconfigured, Kieran, and the network disability teams. It has never, ever, like in the last 10 months, Kieran, there has been very little face-to-face interventions taken.
No, and I think, and you're right, and people, I think people appreciate, and everyone we spoke to yesterday appreciated that, and that people were sent off in different directions during COVID, and that compounded the problem. But the problem existed before COVID. I think what really annoyed a lot of people yesterday was a line from the HSE talking about the unprecedented COVID situation when they talked about the 25,000 on waiting lists. I mean, COVID is not to blame. Politicians and governments have been to blame.
What was wrong before COVID was certainly exacerbated during COVID, and we need to reset the dial as we come out of it. And how we reset the dial as we come out of it is we need to recruit and fill these positions. And we need to not just be giving children and families tokenistic 6 weeks of a therapeutic session and thinking that solves the problem. It certainly doesn't. For Marion, who spoke about our little child there who needed an awful lot of help there in relation to the speech and language therapy, 6 weeks won't sort that out. What needs is the continuous intervention, possibly for a number of years. And that will come between the network disability teams and the interdepartmental working between ourselves and the school inclusion model, which when it's up and running. And to be fair to the school inclusion model with the network disability teams, that is actually to support the teacher, the child and the family in the environment where the child spends most of their time.
Okay, I want to kind of nail down those figures again if I can. So because it's now the 9th of March, and you talked about by May. How many additional posts by May?
I will. At the moment, we're recruiting the posts as we speak, the 100 therapist posts.
But you talked about 300 as well. So where's that figure coming from?
There was 100 brought into posts last year who never got to work in their position.
So they'll be coming back.
Yes, and most of them are back here. Okay. There's 100 within the network disability teams, which I am recruiting as we speak. Okay. And there's 100 therapist posts to go into post as part of the school inclusion model team. Okay. So
so those 200 additional plus the 100 that are on their way back, some of them already back, all 300 back working where they're meant to be or recruited by May.
Yes, well, I can only speak to the 200 within disability, okay? I can't speak for the 100 for education, but I know that they are working on the recruitment process as well.